Hi guys, it's Marijka here at Milton Public Library, back with you today for the last classics and award winners. Today we're going to start with Elijah of Buxton, and this book is by Christopher Paul Curtis. So Elijah is the first of his family born into freedom. The rest of them were born into slavery and earned or paid for their way out. His family and him live in this Canadian settlement called Buxton. And life in Buxton for Elijah is normal, and everything is actually pretty nice, and he doesn't really understand when people talk about their lives or how it was, or he doesn't have any sort of emotion to base that off of, since he has always been free himself. So one day, a friend of his who is saving up to buy his own family out of slavery, his money gets stolen, and it's obviously pretty devastating because he wants his family back in, and no one wants their family or member to be a slave. So Elijah embarks on this mission to go and find this money, to find the person and where this money is. And this mission takes him all across America. And, or not all across America. It takes him down from the northern part of the United States to the southern part of the United States. And here Elijah gets to witness firsthand and experience what it must have felt like for the rest of his family and everyone else to live in slavery. So another thing I'd like to add about this book is it's a little different from some other books, because this book, some of the writing is in actual dialect. So it might not be spelled, or spelling might be off, and grammatically it might not be correct. But when you write in dialect, you are spelling it exactly how it sounds when it comes out of the mouth. So that might be a little bit of an adjustment you have to make while reading this book. It also, some people can think that it's a bit slow in the beginning. It is a slow start. It really is talking about life on the settlement and life for Elijah before this trauma starts to happen. But it does pick up and it does get really exciting. So that book is Elijah of Buxton, and that is by Christopher Paul Curtis. Then today I have for you Harriet the Spy, and this book is by Louise Fitzhugh. So Harriet fancies herself a spy, and she takes these notes down, jots all of this information down in her notebook, and every day goes on her spy path and writing down all these little tidbits about all of these people that are along this path. So Harriet doesn't just write stuff in her notebook about strangers. She also writes stuff in her notebook about people that she knows, including her friends. Now, the stuff that she writes isn't like nice things necessarily. It's straightforward, honest things that she has observed about these people. And most of the things that other people may quietly observe about us are not generally things that we want to hear said out loud. So she puts all of this information into her little notebook, and then one day the notebook is taken from her, and all of these things that she has written about these people, and remember, probably not very nice things that people want to hear, are like verbally spoken and for everyone to hear. So of course she's like devastated, but everyone around her completely ostracizes her. Her friends won't hang out with her, and then her parents, as punishment, ground her from writing in the notebook. So Harriet is just at the lowest point that she could possibly be at. The only person that she has that seems to show her any sort of like compassion for the situation is her nanny. So, but of course, because this is a book, Harriet has to pick herself up and find a way out of this and make it better. So that is Harriet the Spy, and it is by Louise Fitzhugh. Moving on to the Black Stallion. This book is by Walter Farley. And so the main chunk of the story, there's this really terrible shipwreck, and Alec survives only by seeing this wild stallion escape from the ship, and he has like the rein on, and so Alec grabs a hold of that and holds on for dear life, and this wild horse swims to this desert island, and Alec is safe. Once they're on the desert island, the stallion and Alec really start to depend on each other for survival, both having their different sorts of strengths. Obviously, one is a horse, but Alec totally understands that this is like a wild horse. If anyone's seen a wild horse, they're not these docile pen creatures. They don't like to be touched. They will, attack you, run off, do all of these things. But through this sort of kinship that they have formed, they start to bond and learn to trust each other. So finally they're rescued, and they both have to learn to live on the land, and Alec is worried that the stallion will not be able to acclimate to this sort of like land, or like, what am I trying to, stable style horse. So they start running because the horse is very good at running, and that seems to be a way that they are able to use to get some sort of calmness within the horse. So this is just a really great story about a human and animal relationship, and how powerful those relationships can be for both parties, and also about strength, survival, and trust. So that is The Black Stallion, and it is by Walter Farley. Next up, we have The One and Only Ivan. This is by Christina Applegate. So Ivan lives, this story is just so sad. I just need to say that from the start. Even talking about it just sounds so sad. Ivan lives in this really tiny zoo in this mall. And although at first in the book it's presented like Ivan is perfectly okay with this situation, this is home, and he has these like common people that he knows, and there's TV, and as much as the people that come in to observe him, he observes them, and this is what he knows, this is what these are his memories in his head, right? So according to Ivan, everything is pretty cool in this place. Then the zoo gets this new baby elephant named Ruby. And Ruby comes in, and the dynamic of this whole place shifts. Ruby brings with her this really fresh trauma. So Ruby tells them, about the fact that her whole family has been murdered by these poachers, and she was stolen and then brought here to live the rest of her life in captivity, essentially to replace the other elephant who is aging and not doing so well. So nothing sounds happy so far in this book. So this shift with the addition of Ruby brings something in Ivan where he starts bringing up these like old memories, and he starts to realize that this is not home, that this is a cage, and he is a hostage. This is just a very sad, emotional story, and it is based on a real zoo and a real gorilla. And it does also end as happy as a story like this could end. So it's not all doom and gloom. And, sometimes a good, sad story is exactly what you need to read. So that is The One and Only Ivan, and it is by Kristen Applegate. The very last book that I have for you in this classic award-winning section is a very classic book, Oliver Twist by Charles Dickens. I would like to preface this book that this is not in any means a happy story. This is a heavy story, a really, really heavy story. And if you cannot hold the weight of this story, I don't know if you should read it. And there's nothing wrong with that. So Oliver Twist is this young child who was born and lives in this workhouse. And workhouses were these really old things in Britain, essentially like slavery for poor people. Yeah, so just really terrible places. And he's a victim of this really corrupt society. So he fights these hardships, and then he endures more hardships. And then ultimately fate reveals that that fate is even harder than he had ever thought. I mean, it's just boom after boom after boom on this very young child just trying to live in this world. So he falls into this group of really terrible people that just want to use him to achieve their really terrible goals. And, it's terrible. There's no other. So this book is full of terrible people. It is a terrible, horrible, ugly setting, and it is a really horrible time in history. So this is a great reminder of what workhouses were like and how much we've actually evolved. I know sometimes it's hard to think, maybe for some people, that, that it could be worse, because it could be a lot better. But there was a time where we treated people just so much worse than we do now, and this book is a great representation of how people were treated way back when, which honestly wasn't that long ago. This book is also a really great reminder about how children's books are not always these really happy-go-lucky, everybody wins, everybody's good, everybody's nice type books. That especially some of the classics, they were not happy stories. They were very sad, very heavy stories that represented the time in which they were either written or the time in which they were written about. So they were hard and they were cold, and most of the time they were very, very truthful and accurate. So sometimes that's a lot now, we think, for children, but I feel that sometimes it's nice to read some heavy stuff if you can handle it. So that is Oliver Twist, and it is by Charles Dickens. All right, so that was the whole classic award winners for this month. Next month, I am honestly haven't quite decided what I want to do yet, so I will leave it as a surprise for when I come back. So thank you for joining me. I hope you enjoyed those books, and I will see you next time. Bye.